So hi, my name is Christian Kapp, and I am the research technician here at UPREC. Right now we are standing in the grain quality lab that we were fortunate enough to be able to put together with help from an MDARD grant back in 2016. So that's how long we've been in business, so to speak. And so we test grain quality on malting barley, wheat, oats, rye, and we're currently thinking about expanding into possibly other crops such as corn, and specifically concentrating on the mycotoxin aspect of the test. So, but we started out as a malting barley lab, and so when, let's say, you, the grower, wants to send a sample into our lab, our complete sample would be germination energy, which just shows how viable your lot of barley is at that moment in time for sprouting. Germination capacity, which that number tells us how the capacity of your barley to germinate. So then we test for crude protein, kernel assortment, moisture, pre-harvest sprout, and DON, which would be deoxyribonucleic. So basically, when your sample comes into the lab, we log it in Google Drive. We then assign a number to it. It goes into a quart-sized mason jar, and that's its home for at least 6 months to a year, if not longer. And the sample is lightly cleaned through our cleaning mill, and that's really just to get the beards off of the barley. And then after our sample's cleaned, we run it through our seed counter, because we have to count out seeds for our germination energy and our germination capacity test. And so we just count out 100 seeds per plate on the germination energy test. So we'll run a 4 mil test, plate A and B, and an 8 mil test, plate C and D. And what those tests tell us then is how viable the barley is in terms of germination, and then how water sensitive it is. So we run everything through our seed counter, and then we put it either in a plate or a beaker, and then we would move on to crude protein, kernel assortment, and our other assorted tests. We're running about 7 to 10 business days on our reporting. It depends on the amount of samples we have in the lab and what else we have ongoing. Since this lab is basically a subset of what goes on here in terms of agronomy research, we run both private samples through our lab, and we also run research samples through our lab as well. Okay, so here I'm going to demonstrate our seed cleaner, and right here is why we really purchased our seed cleaner, is because occasionally we'll have barley come in that has awns or beards on the seed like this, and it makes it difficult to flow through our equipment and to work with. So this seed cleaner here is a Pfeiffer, I believe the name. I probably mispronounced that. It's a German company. So there's a cylinder encased in here with wires that come off of it, and the wires separate the beard from the seed. So we dump it in, sample in. Turn it on. The door just opened. and it's a shade cleaner. So here we have our machine that tests crude protein and moisture. It's called a FOSS Infratech Nova. Its main job is just to, like I said, test for crude protein. It uses reflectance as a way to test for that, and I will let Ryan Hamilton explain that later on in this video. So what we do when we test for crude protein, this machine is very simple to, it's very complex internally when you look at the programming, but it's very simple to use just to, in order to complete your analysis. So we take our sample and we pour it in the little container catch pan here. Now this container catch pan has a conveyor belt, so you'll see in a minute how that operates. So once your sample's poured in, you come down and press this button. Now it wants our sample number. We've already tested this sample, so we're just going to type in gibberish and say OK. Now right now what the machine is doing is it's taking a subsample of this sample itself. It'll take 9 of these subsamples. And there we have our top number is protein, 10.3, and our bottom number is moisture, 13.32. It's a very accurate machine. I've actually tested the moisture with our Dickey John grain computer, and this is actually more accurate than our grain computer. And that's it. Record your, the machine will also record your data to its internal hard drive, but we also like to instantly record this on our Google Sheets because we use Google Docs for all of our lab-based data management and data capture. And then if you really want to get nerdy, you can go into, I think, the details of your sample, and it'll show you the subsample, protein and moisture, and then it also gives standard deviation, which is a very important statistic in lab analysis. And then it just gives you your min and your max. Okay, so here we have our RVA Starchmaster 2, manufactured by Perton. What this machine tells us is whether or not our barley has any pre-harvest sprout or germination within the seed. And it does this based on the viscosity of our sample. So we weigh out a certain amount of ground barley sample, place it in this canister, add 25 milliliters of distilled water, stir just a little bit so we get the clumps stirred up. Insert our paddle. Now the machine has to heat up to 95 degrees centigrade, and then it starts its test. And right now it's measuring the viscosity of the sample based on certain revolutions per minute and certain temperatures. And it's a 3-minute test. So here's what our sample looks like. And so that's what the machine was testing, is how viscous this ground up barley was. And as you can see, this one is viscous, which actually correlates well to pre-harvest sprout. If it's thinner, it seems that there's more of a higher chance for sprout.